Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 15 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs of home. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show. Well, we're meeting with President and CEO of the Big Frog Franchise Opportunity, Tina Bacon-DeFrece. A locally owned and operated, Big Frog Custom T-shirts and more specializes in direct-to-garment printing, a clean and green apparel printing technology. Big Frog is a one-stop shop for un-frog-ettable custom apparel with a wide selection of services, including screen printing, embroidery, vinyl, and ultra-print heat press. I'm going to talk to Tina about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 15 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with the president and CEO of the Big Frog Franchise Opportunity, Tina Bacon-DeFrece. And locally owned and operated, Big Frog Custom T-shirts and more specializes in direct-to-garment printing, a clean and green apparel printing technology. Hi, Tina. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great, Marty. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I should actually say welcome back to the show. I don't know if you remember, Tina. I think the last time I interviewed, I want to say it was about 9 years ago. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, really?
That was a long time ago.
I'm sorry.
Almost a decade, yeah. I mean, it was, this is fun for me because when I remember Big Frog at the time, because I was very impressed with the franchise opportunity, you were kind of like in the, I don't want to say the earlier stages, of the franchise, and to see where you are today is just, it's so wonderful. So we always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Tina?
I'm calling from Dunedin, Florida, which is about 15 minutes north of Clearwater Beach.
Okay, fantastic. And Florida is really where Big Frog got its start, isn't it, Tina?
Yes, we're homegrown in Florida. We started right here, actually, in Dunedin is where we started. So we did not move far from our origination story.
That's terrific. Maybe we could talk about, some of again, I know the history of Big Frog, but, for our listeners, maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the history, how you got started, and maybe some of the highlights, over the last decade.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it's an interesting story. I and my partners, we were all research scientists and salespeople at a scientific instruments company, and we decided to retire and start an online novelty business called uniquelygeek.com. So it's kind of before Big Bang, with that kind of vibe. The T-shirts, First World Chemistry, Don't Lick the Spoon, all kinds of archaeology rocks, like just nerdy stuff because we were all nerds.
Right.
But when we went to buy shirts, which we had never done before, it was the most painful process on the planet. Minimums, I had to buy 10,000 shirts just to stock my inventory. And that was just a no-go for me. And plus, they made it so unpleasant to try to figure out artwork and color separate. I didn't know what any of that stuff meant.
Yeah.
So, and one of my good friends was in the business and couldn't work with me on it. So we did some research and found this cool technology that prints T-shirts. So it actually takes green dye and prints it just like your home CMYK printer onto T-shirts and embeds it in the cotton, and it's there forever. So we're like, well, this is perfect. We don't have to have tons of inventory. We'll print on demand. So, it really spoke to us, the whole geek thing. But then we were featured on a morning show here in Tampa where they love the T-shirt printer. And so they really just focused on that and not the nerd stuff. And next thing you know, I have plumbers, churches, schools calling for T-shirts because it just looks so cool, full color, minimums. And we kind of just said, oh, we're just going to follow the money here. This is obviously a niche that no one's thought of. You can get just one, no pressure. And we didn't know what we were doing. So we're going to be a disruptor model, no minimums, no design fees. You just pay for the shirt and you get this whole cool item. Yeah. And it just went so well. We moved to retail space in 2007 and rebranded as Bay Area Custom T-shirts. And as a research scientist, I did all the SEO work, and next I'm getting requests all over the country from especially areas with the word Bay in it. So Green Bay is calling, San Francisco's calling for shirts overnighted, no minimums. It was amazing. Right. And so we took off in 2008. A customer came in and said, I want a franchise. And we all looked at each other and well, we don't know that's McDonald's. We don't franchise. We don't know what that is. Right. And then we went to an investment banker who's like, oh, no, this is franchisable. You need to do this. So thankfully, we had tons of great consultants in the Bay Area that we worked with that explained to us what franchising was, what you do, what royalties were, what marketing funds were, all these things that we had no idea. And we started franchising in November 2008 with friends and family opening businesses and kind of just really went nuts from there. So it's been quite a ride. We've learned a lot. We definitely were homegrown franchise model.
You wouldn't remember this either, Tina, but you were kind enough to send me a bunch of T-shirts with the Franchise Interviews logo on it, and you won't believe this, but we still have the T-shirts. I mean, and
how do they look? They look good, right?
So, but it's such a wonderful feeling, isn't it? I mean, when you see your logo on a T-shirt or some type of cause or something like that, it just kind of validates what you're doing, And it was such a wonderful experience when we got them. How do you, because the business has really grown, I've noticed, over the last decade. I mean, maybe, how do you describe the Big Frog franchise to, let's say, a prospective franchisee? Because I know your product line seems to be a lot bigger today than it was 10 years ago.
Yes, we have a lot more revenue streams than we used to. So, basically we say Big Frog is a specialty retail concept where we perform light manufacturing in the store. We have very few employees and low inventory, which speaks people in retail really like the low inventory feature.
Right.
And few employees is great these days especially. But we really want to say, after we say that little blurb, we go, it's a consultative sales experience with exceptional customer service with a focus on serving our community. The community feature is just so important, and we just so happen to sell custom apparel. But that's where our strength is that exceptional customer experience.
Who are the customers, Tina? I mean, are they businesses? Are they causes? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, we say, where everyone is a customer except for the nudist colonies is what we say, and maybe they need aprons.
Great.
But, so we usually start out when a store launches, a lot of it's consumer. So it's your mom's needing party favors. It's, unfortunately, memorial T-shirts. And then as the store grows, it's definitely B2B. It's your small landscaping companies that have turnover where they need constant shirts. It can be, we do stuff for Home Depot, Aetna, United Healthcare, so we can get into the big organizations as well. But we kind of slowly go to that point. And what we find is that as a member of the community, there's a lot of lack of trust in some garment decorating operations. And once we've been in a community for a couple of years, people get to know us and they start to trust us to take care of them the way they need to be taken care of. But we absolutely fundraise for local causes all the time. During COVID, our stores probably raised $40,000 or $50,000 for local businesses to help keep bars and restaurants open. I know our stores running. We have actually a lot of stores running breast cancer awareness fundraisers right now with online stores. So they're doing it's amazing, and I think that's what our owners like about being in Big Frog is really having that impact in the community. It's been very fulfilling.
It's a lower cost franchise opportunity, relatively speaking, compared to a lot of other concepts that I have on the show, Tina. Maybe talk a little bit about that too, because I think that's important. Is again, as I was mentioning, some of the concepts we have on the show are pretty fairly expensive to get into. So it eliminates a lot of people that listen to this show. But I think that's another plus or perk for Big Frog, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So we are a B+ retail brick and mortar situation. So those can generally be very expensive. We're hovering right about $200,000 full investment with working capital, and it's only a 1,200 to 1,400 square foot space. So it's not a huge rental property. But yeah, it's very reasonable. And because we print on demand, we don't keep $50,000 worth of inventory. We keep files. And we go through that every day. So it's definitely a lower cost retail. I mean, it's not as low cost as a home-based, service, but it's very reasonable for a retail brick and mortar.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's terrific. And you grew up. Your father was he was a commander in the U.S. Coast Guard, Tina. And so Big Frog recently launched an incentive program for veterans and also first responders. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because that's really what kind of caught my attention as well.
Yeah, so like you said, my dad was a commander in the Coast Guard and a Vietnam vet. My business partner, who has since passed, was a Vietnam vet as well. And my husband's dad was a firefighter for years and retired from Grand Rapids back in the day. So we are all very, very partial to all of our people that serve our country and our and Americans in general. So what we wanted to do is we've always been part of ZetFran, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about. So we offer the 20% discount on the franchise fee. But what we're doing through September next year, if we have a veteran or a first responder purchase a Big Frog, they get royalty-free payments for the first 12 months of their store opening. So we're approximating it could be well over $15,000 in savings at the end of the day. But we really feel strongly and passionately about having veterans and first responders in our system.
And I'm sure the technology is a little bit different today than when I talked to you 9 years ago. I mean, so what role does technology play in your business today, Tina?
Yeah, we call our stores Georgia the Jungle meets the Jetsons, because we've got that whole green vibe in there. We're a green business, but we have this really cool printer that you can watch print T-shirts all day. So that really is the heart of our business. But over the last 10 years, we've actually seen the printers evolve to the point where we can print black T-shirts, which really expanded our business. Before it was just like your standard printer on white paper. So that's been amazing. That has opened up huge opportunities, and there's new materials science available for allowing new types of heat transfers from the printer, and our stores are just thriving with the new stuff. And of course, software platforms have been amazing. New CRMs that are reasonably priced, digital advertising platforms. So, yes, we are constantly looking at technology to try to make our businesses easier to run. Our business is complex. We have 6 revenue streams with embroidery, screen print, in-house printing, vinyl, dye sublimate. It's very complex.
Sure.
So we just try to use technology to make easy buttons for our owners so they're not pulling their hair out at the end of the day.
I would bet, too, that your customers, too, I mean, I guess thinking, with social media, when they get a shirt, too, I wouldn't be surprised if they post it on social media as well, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we try to promote more of that. I would love to see more of it, but it's hard to get people to do that. But they definitely, what we try to do is in the store, if they're there, we'll take pictures of them in the store so they can show off their shirt. People are very proud of their shirts because they helped us design them. It was their idea. They came, like your logo. They came up with it. It's their idea on a shirt. They picked the shirt, the color, everything. So they love to show off what they've done.
And I guess it's safe to say, I mean, you're part of a big industry, Tina. I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean, I guess it's safe to say that you're part of a pretty big industry, aren't you?
Globally, garment decorating is about $26 billion industry. Wow. In the U.S., it's a $3 billion industry, and they are saying it's poised to grow 10% over the next 5 years. Absolutely. So it's a very solid industry, and what's great is with the technology innovations, we can stay on top of that, while some of the older technologies, screen print will be around forever, but it's really kind of dying out a bit. So it's great that we can use our technology to keep growing in this industry as it evolves.
What's been, tough question, Tina, but what's one of the most interesting things that's happened to you, since launching Big Frog? I mean, you've had thousands and thousands of experiences, so to narrow it down to one single experience, probably tough, but does anything stand out over the years?
And this is kind of a general statement, and I'm sure there have been very interesting things, but I'll tell you, when we got into franchising, as I mentioned, it wasn't anything we really knew what we were doing, which has turned out great for us. We're doing great.
Right, sure. But
absolutely. What I thought that it would be is just having these, random people running Big Frogs under the Big Frog umbrella, and they do their thing and we do our thing. But it's been amazing because it evolved to partnerships and now family. And I just feel I never would have thought in a million years that all of these people would now be my family. I have extended family through Canada, the United States.
Right.
We know each other's kids. We talk about our dogs.
Wow.
We celebrate each other's successes and challenges. We call each other crying. Whatever it is, it's become this huge life experience that I never would have thought was possible. And maybe it's different for the large private equity-owned franchisors. We're still the same. We founded it. So it's been amazing, and it has changed my worldview in a lot of ways. Now, if there was a mudslide in San Diego 20 years, I wouldn't have thought much about it. But that sucks. Sure. But now it's like I got to call my people. Is everything all right? Is your family? It's changed my empathy level, and it just has affected my life on so many levels. So I'm very fortunate.
That's wonderful. It's nice that you still have that family atmosphere. There's always like a joke, like sometimes with like Subway or McDonald's, like your franchisee number 20,907 or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's nice.
I'm sure it's very difficult.
Sure, it must be, right, to have that family relationship. But it's nice that you have that, with your franchisees, and as you said, it's changed your life and it's changed your perspective. So. You mentioned like the veterans, seem to make a really good match for Big Frog, Tina. What types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees that kind of, I guess you would say, make them a good fit or candidate for Big Frog as a franchisee?
So one of the first things we do is we look for someone who likes people and has a good sense of humor. Retail, even if it's a specialty retail like us, we still have those Karens that come in.
Sure.
And it's important to be able to roll with it, shake it off, and laugh about it later. Right. You don't want to be too intense,
Right.
And like you said about veterans and first responders, we want people to understand and appreciate what a system brings to the game.
Yes.
We and I'm sure I said this the first time we talked, we've burned $10,000 bills galore starting this franchise. We've made mistakes left and right, and that's fine. That's part of growing a business. Sure. But we don't want other people don't reinvent a system. Just trust us when we say this doesn't work.
Right, exactly.
And that's why we like the vets and first responders. They really understand systems are there to prevent problems, big problems, and to ensure successful operations. But, deviation from that can cause, decrease your chances of success or cost money, right?
Right.
But, and the nice thing about vets and first responders is they understand what is really life critical and what isn't. A ruined T-shirt is nothing at the end of the day, and that kind of perspective is really going to be critical for being a great leader to their team. Yeah. So it's just, but sense of humor definitely is something people need, I think, owning a business, period, probably.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great response, Tina. So how does the training work today, Tina? Do they still come down to corporate? How does that all work once you decide, that you like them, they like you, and they do become a franchisee? What is the training like today?
So it's a little more expansive than it was, a lot more than 9 years ago.
Okay.
But they come down for a week of training here at Big Frog University. So they learn the ins and outs of the business, from marketing, financial, profitability, to running the printer, essentially.
Right.
And then once they soft open, our trainer goes out there for a week and takes them through real case scenarios, upselling, doing the whole customer experience. So they have that. Right. And then we have an additional week of marketing and sales training. So we'll have one of our business coaches go out and teach them how to sell, do cold calling, that type of thing. So that's about, 15 days of training, plus tons of online courses, 1,000 pages of manuals, all that stuff. No one wants to read a manual. But we have it there if they want to.
That's great.
And then we do continuous weekly coaching calls as well as bi-weekly Monday webinars for continued education. So we want to make sure, we know people learn at different rates, learn different ways. We hit them every way we can so they can learn how it's most comfortable for them.
Right. It seems like, too, when I was reading some of, the comments from your franchisees, Tina, is that, Big Frog fits into their lifestyle. It seemed like a lot of people mentioned that, it was important to them that, they were able to get home and still have a life at the end of the day, or, spend time with their family on weekends. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, like a typical day as a Big Frog franchisee.
Sure. So it's nice. Our operating hours are really 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then 10 to 1 on Saturdays. Okay. We did that originally because we wanted to go fishing on Saturday afternoons. Sure. So we didn't. This is what we wanted to do. But so that way, at least they have their weekends pretty much available. So they get to the office at 9 or the store at 9. They usually start with some sort of team huddle because we are production-oriented as well. So they gather the team, get them all situated for the day. So once they're good to go, they can then go run and do things that they need to do. So it can be BNI, chamber meetings. It can be going to volunteer at their child's school for the luncheon. So it's pretty open at that point. But generally, by the end of the day, they're back in the store, making sure everything was handled, following up on those large quotes that maybe you don't trust the team to close. Some of those sales are pretty big. Ordering inventory, kind of just doing admin stuff. And they're out by 6. Now, of course, there's times where you get those 100 T-shirt orders last minute that maybe you're there till midnight.
Right. That's a good problem, though.
But, but the goal is to get out by 6 so you're home. And, what we always tell our owners is it's the strength of your team that will allow you to have that work-life balance that you need. So we really focus with them on training their team and making sure they're up to speed and completely independent so the owners can have that time off. Many of our owners take Fridays off to go to their lake house. Some take 2 weeks to go to Europe. Actually, quite a few do that. So, they're having but I will say, in all honesty, that first year, you've got your nose to the grindstone.
Right.
You're not comfortable leaving yet. You don't know everything about the business. So, it probably is a year or two before you're really comfortable taking those 2 weeks off to go do a nice family vacation.
So you've been doing this, you've been in franchising now, I guess it's safe to say it's a long time from when I last talked to you, Tina. So, from everything I guess you've learned over the last, decade from when I last spoke to you, What advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because, since we started the show, you found that the biggest obstacle is there's so much out there to choose from today. So a lot of our listeners don't even know where to begin, so it gets a little overwhelming. So from everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
So I would say do your research. Make sure the model's one you'll enjoy. Okay, right. I had one candidate come to Discover Day and tell me, I hate people, I hate working with people, I don't like teenagers, I don't want them working with me. And, and we very delicately said, well, this is not a fit for you. Right. I don't know what it is, but this is not it. So I think it's really important that you figure out, what do I love? Do I love dogs? Do I love doing, hanging out with them? Do I want a dog, a pet franchise? Or, do I really feel passionate about senior care? Do I want to be involved with the community and really impact multiple, facets of my community, which is what Big Frog does, is, interact, become, a true leader. That's a great opportunity. But know what you want to do and what you would hate to do out of the gate, and make sure, food, you could kill somebody. Think about that. Is that something you want to live with? And I'm sure you wouldn't, but it's just something to think about.
Of course.
But I would say the other thing is if you've kind of narrowed down to a couple different concepts, ask the franchise salesperson to recommend talking to people who are like you. So if you're a single mom and you want to have this business, ask to speak to other single moms and find out what their day looks like, what the challenges have been. If you're a mother-son team that want to, have a great business together, talk to other mother-son teams and see where the challenges have been, because working with family can be a challenge. See what they've overcome, how it's worked out. Really talk to people who are like you, and ask the franchise salesperson for recommendations, because that could be huge in making a decision of what the right concept is.
What a great response. It's funny because I mentioned, so I've been doing this show 15 years, and so, a lot of times, when I ask the question, a guest will say to me, talk to other franchisees. But what you're saying is it goes deeper, and that makes so much sense, is to talk to people just like you, right? Just like, as you said, single moms, talk to single moms. Veterans should talk to veterans, and I've never heard that before, and I just think that's so brilliant. I think it's really great advice for our listeners. So I'm looking at the map for Big Frog, and so Big Frog seems to be kind of all over the United States at this point. So if you could look into a crystal ball, Tina, maybe it's 1 year or 3 years or 5 years down the road, where do you see Big Frog?
We're hoping to have another 50 units open throughout the U.S. and Canada over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're poised to do a very strong franchise development effort. We really did put a hold on that during COVID. Our goal is to keep our stores. We just focused all of our budget on the stores at that point. So we're excited. We're going to launch hardcore with this new veteran promotion, and we're getting back out there to expos and that type of thing. But we do have a master franchisor in Canada, so we're going to work with him to try to open up some more stores there. And then we're just going to focus on double-digit growth at the store level, which we've seen. We're going to have multiple million-dollar stores this year, which is a first for us. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, but really put a hardcore focus on that Fran Dev effort. So again, hoping for another 50 units in hopefully 3 years, but I'll give it 5.
That's wonderful. That's great. So what's the best way, Tina, for our listeners to get more information on Big Frog? Of course, there's the franchise opportunity, but even maybe the service itself. I mean, are there any websites that you want to kind of plug?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So just to visit a store, go to bigfrog.com. And you can figure out which store is closest to you there. And then to check us out as a franchise op, if you go to bigfrogfranchise.com, that will get you a lot of the starting points, and we'll be happy to work with you to see if we're all a good fit together.
That's fantastic. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you again, Tina. I can't believe it's been 9 or 10 years since I last spoke to you, but I'd like to invite you back again over the next. I'm not going to wait 10 years this time. Maybe a couple of years, and I'll have you back again. And again, it was a privilege to speak with you again today.
All right. Thank you so much, Marty.
This has been my pleasure, Tina. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every Franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com. Or you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on this show. So picture this scenario. You just started a company, and you need to hire a chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, and chief operating officer. How much do you think it'll cost to achieve this task? What if you could start a company that immediately has these positions already filled in place and ready to go? Would you be interested? Well, today's great quote in franchising comes from Ben Crosby of Franchise Development for the Drip Bar Franchise Opportunity. And Ben discusses this notion on this Great Quotes in Franchising podcast. So here we go with Ben Crosby of the Drip Bar Franchise Opportunity. Advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because there is so much out there today. There's more to choose from. It could be a little confusing to someone who's new to getting involved in franchising. So what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Yeah, be open-minded. Talk and learn through the business first. You know, we on the Fran Dev side things, most should be looking to educate the consumer first and the prospects, because at the end of the day, if you understand and have a passion for whatever business it is, you have a higher chance of being successful. Franchising is a great opportunity because you're really partnering with a C-level team. Confirming that they're actually a C-level team is very important as well. When you're a prospect looking around, you don't want to be sold, a false hope, false promises. But if everything checks off, you appreciate and understand the business, and you like the team that's there to support you, really in the early times, focus on working with the team. Get rid of all the distractions in the periphery. Work with the team, be transparent, be motivated to be successful, and a good franchise system will give you all the tools in order to be successful.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before in 14 years, Ben. As you mentioned, to partner with C-level partners. You know what I mean? That's right. You don't get that experience when you go into your own business. And I think that's really. If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Ben Crosby of the Drip Bar Franchise Opportunity, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com and go to our franchise interviews listed alphabetically page, or you can go to our franchise interviews listed by category page, and you can go under health and fitness. And lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big hit, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.